She spent Christmas with the Millionaire CEO by accident, and what he confessed that night changed. She shouldn't have answered her phone at 6:47 p.m. on Christmas Eve, but she did. Layla Robbins sat curled on her worn but cozy navy blue couch, her rich mahogany skin glowing in the warm light of her small apartment's Christmas tree. Her natural hair was twisted into an elegant bun, soft curls framing her heart-shaped face. At 27, she had learned to find beauty in simple moments, like tonight with It's a Wonderful Life queued up on her laptop and a steaming mug of hot chocolate waiting on her coffee table. The phone buzzed again. Hale Industries flashed across the screen. "No," she whispered to her empty living room, decorated with handmade ornaments and string lights that cast dancing shadows on the walls. Not tonight. But something in her chest, the same instinct that had earned her 3 promotions in 2 years as inventory controller, made her swipe to answer. Layla Robbins. "Ms. Robbins, this is Janet from the executive office." The voice was strained, apologetic. "I'm so sorry to call you on Christmas Eve, but we have an emergency situation." Layla closed her eyes, already knowing her quiet evening was about to disappear. Through her window, she could see snowflakes beginning to dance under the streetlights of her modest but charming neighborhood in downtown Portland. "What kind of emergency?" she asked, though her heart was already sinking. "The Morrison account contracts, the ones you flagged last week for signature discrepancies. They need to be delivered to headquarters tonight. The merger documents need final review before the holidays end, and without those files, the deal falls through," Layla finished, her mind already shifting into professional mode despite her disappointment. She'd spent weeks identifying the inventory inconsistencies that could have cost the company millions. "But Janet, it's Christmas Eve. Can't this wait until Mr. Hale is flying in from New York? He'll be at headquarters all night reviewing everything. The documents have to be there, Ms. Robbins. You're the only one who knows the complete file structure." Mr. Hale, Christopher Hale, the CEO she'd never met but whose reputation preceded him, brilliant, demanding, and notoriously private. The man who'd built Hale Industries from a small logistics company into a nationwide empire, yet somehow remained an enigma even to his own employees. Layla looked at her hot chocolate, at the Christmas movie paused on her screen, at the peaceful evening she'd planned. Then she thought about her team, about the jobs that depended on this merger going through. "How long will it take?" she asked, already reaching for her coat. 2 hours, maybe 3. You'll be home before midnight, I promise." Famous last words. 20 minutes later, Layla stood in the empty offices of Hale Industries' Portland branch, gathering files that seemed to multiply before her eyes. The building felt different at night. Larger, quieter, filled with shadows that stretched across the polished floors. Her heels clicked against the marble as she moved between departments, collecting documents that represented months of careful analysis. Outside, the snow was falling harder now, painting the windows with delicate frost patterns that caught the building's security lights. "You're amazing for doing this," Janet had said, before leaving Layla alone with a security badge and detailed instructions. "Mr. Hale specifically requested you handle the transfer personally. He knows who I am." The thought had surprised her more than it should have. In a company of thousands, she was just another employee. Competent, reliable, but hardly on the CEO's radar, or so she'd thought. As she sealed the final box of documents, Layla's phone buzzed with a weather alert. Winter storm warning. All major highways closed. Portland International Airport suspended operations. Her blood went cold. She rushed to the window, pressing her palm against the glass. What had been gentle snowflakes an hour ago was now a full-scale blizzard, wind-whipping snow into white walls that made the street below nearly invisible. "No, no, no," she whispered, pulling out her phone to call a cab. The app showed no available drivers. The bus routes were suspended. Even the light rail had shut down. She tried Janet's number. It went straight to voicemail. Panic fluttered in her chest as the reality sank in. She was stranded in an empty office building on Christmas Eve with no way home. That's when she heard it, the soft ping of the executive elevator. Footsteps echoed across the marble lobby below, confident and purposeful. A man's voice, low and warm, speaking into a phone. "I understand the roads are bad, Marcus, but the Morrison files are here. I'll review everything tonight and have answers by morning." Layla's breath caught. She knew that voice from conference calls, from company announcements, from the brief video messages that played during quarterly meetings. Christopher Hale was here. She stood frozen in the break room, clutching her phone, listening as his footsteps grew closer. Part of her wanted to hide, to avoid the awkward explanation of why she was still here. But another part, the professional part, that had earned her reputation for reliability, knew she had to face this moment. Taking a deep breath, she smoothed her black wool coat and stepped into the hallway. That's when she saw him. Christopher Hale wasn't what she'd expected. Yes, he was tall, probably 6'2", with the broad shoulders that filled his charcoal grey suit perfectly. His hair was dark brown with threads of silver at the temples, slightly mussed from the wind. But it was his eyes that stopped her cold, deep blue, intelligent, and in this moment, completely surprised. They stared at each other across the dimly lit hallway, two people who were supposed to be anywhere but here. "Ms. Robbins?" His voice carried a note of genuine concern. "What are you still doing here?" Before she could answer, the lights flickered. Once, twice. Then the building plunged into darkness. In the sudden silence that followed, broken only by the howling wind outside, Layla heard Christopher's soft chuckle. "Well," he said, his voice closer now in the darkness, "I guess we're both stranded." And in that moment she realized her quiet Christmas Eve was about to become something else entirely. Emergency lighting flickered to life, casting everything in a warm, amber glow that somehow made the empty office feel more intimate than threatening. Layla found herself studying Christopher Hale in this softer light, noting details she'd never seen in corporate photos. The way his tie was slightly loosened, suggesting he'd been working for hours. The small scar above his left eyebrow that spoke of childhood adventures. The genuine concern in his expression as he looked at her. "Are you okay?" he asked, stepping closer. Not close enough to invade her space, but near enough that she could catch the subtle scent of his cologne, something clean and expensive that suited him perfectly. "I'm fine," she replied, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "Just processing the fact that I'm stranded in my office building with my CEO." She paused, then added with a small smile, "On Christmas Eve." Christopher's laugh was rich and genuine, transforming his entire face. "When you put it like that, it does sound like the beginning of a very strange story." Strange is one word for it. Layla shifted the weight of her purse on her shoulder, suddenly aware of how surreal this moment was. 3 hours ago, she'd been planning a quiet night with Jimmy Stewart. Now she was making small talk with one of Portland's most successful businessmen while snow trapped them together. "Have you eaten?" Christopher asked, and something in his tone made her look at him more carefully. There was no trace of the commanding executive she'd imagined. Instead, he seemed thoughtful, almost gentle. "I was planning to heat up some leftover Chinese food when I got home," she admitted. "Well, that's not happening anytime soon." He glanced toward the windows where snow continued to blur the world outside. "But I think I can do better than vending machine coffee and stale pastries." Layla raised an eyebrow. "You cook?" "I have many hidden talents," he said with a hint of that smile again. "Follow me." He led her to the executive floor where she'd never been before. The space was elegant but not ostentatious, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture in warm earth tones, and artwork that looked like actual paintings rather than corporate prints. "This is beautiful," she said, genuinely impressed. "Thank you. I spend more time here than I should." Christopher moved to a section of the wall that looked like polished wood paneling. With a gentle push, it revealed a hidden kitchenette. The previous CEO installed this. Said he got tired of ordering takeout during late nights. Smart man. He was. Christopher opened the refrigerator, revealing an impressive selection of ingredients. His wife used to stock this for him. "I've maintained the tradition." There was something wistful in his voice that made Layla wonder about the story behind those words. But before she could ask, he was pulling out containers and setting them on the granite counter. "I hope you like pasta," he said. "It's about the only thing I can make that doesn't come with a high risk of food poisoning." "You're making me dinner?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Christopher paused, his hands stilling on a package of fresh linguine. For a moment, vulnerability flickered across his features. "I just thought, it's Christmas Eve. Neither of us planned to be here. But since we are," he met her eyes, "we might as well make the best of it." Something warm unfurled in Layla's chest. "I'd like that. Good." His smile was softer now, more real. "Can you handle a salad while I tackle the pasta?" "I think I can manage that." They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the emergency lighting creating an unexpectedly cozy atmosphere. Layla found herself stealing glances at Christopher as he moved around the small kitchen with surprising competence. He'd removed his suit jacket and rolled up his sleeves, revealing forearms that suggested he did more than sit behind a desk all day. "So," she said, tearing lettuce with perhaps more focus than necessary, "how did you end up working on Christmas Eve? Don't CEOs get holidays off?" "Technically, yes." Christopher's voice carried a note of self-deprecation. "But the Morrison merger has been my priority for months. When I heard about the document issues you'd discovered, I wanted to review everything personally. You could have just called me, or scheduled a meeting for next week." He was quiet for a moment, stirring the sauce with careful attention. "Honestly, I've been looking for an excuse to meet you." Layla's hand stilled on the salad. "What?" "Your work on the inventory analysis was exceptional. The way you caught those discrepancies, the thoroughness of your documentation." He glanced at her. "I've been impressed with you for months, Ms. Robbins. I wanted to tell you that in person." Heat crept up her neck. "You could have just sent an email." "I could have," he agreed, "but that felt impersonal. You saved this deal, probably saved several jobs in the process. That deserves more than an email." Layla felt a flutter of pride mixed with something else, something warmer and more dangerous. "Just doing my job." "No," Christopher said firmly, turning to face her fully. "You went beyond your job. You always do. Did you think I didn't notice?" The intensity in his voice, in his eyes, made her breath catch. Honestly, I assumed I was invisible to you." "Invisible?" Christopher set down his spoon, giving her his complete attention. "Layla, you're many things, but invisible isn't one of them." The way he said her name, not Ms. Robbins, but Layla, sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the December cold outside. Before she could respond, the building's sound system crackled to life with the building manager's voice. "Attention! Due to severe weather conditions, the building will remain in emergency power mode until morning. All exits are secured for safety. We apologize for any inconvenience." Layla and Christopher looked at each other as the announcement ended, the reality of their situation settling between them. "Well," Christopher said quietly, "I guess we're officially trapped." "Officially," Layla agreed. But as she watched the snow continue to fall outside, as she took in the warm kitchen, and the man who had just revealed he'd been watching her work with admiration, she realized that being trapped might not be the worst thing that had ever happened to her. The pasta timer chose that moment to ring, breaking the tension. "Dinner's ready," Christopher announced, and as he served their impromptu Christmas Eve meal, Layla couldn't shake the feeling that this night was going to change everything. They ate by candlelight. Christopher had found actual candles in the executive conference room, left over from some fancy client dinner, he'd explained with a sheepish grin. Now they sat across from each other at the small table by the window, the warm glow dancing across their faces, while snow continued to paint the world white outside. "This is really good," Layla said, twirling linguine around her fork. "I'm impressed." "Don't be too impressed. It's literally the only dish I've mastered." Christopher's eyes crinkled with self-deprecating humor. "My housekeeper, Mrs. Rodriguez, has been trying to teach me to cook for years. This pasta is my one success story." Layla laughed, the sound rich and genuine. "Well, it's better than my specialty, which is cereal and whatever I can microwave." "A woman after my own heart," he said, then seemed to catch himself. Color rose slightly in his cheeks. "I mean, I know what you meant," Layla said softly, and something passed between them in the candlelight, a moment of acknowledgement that this conversation was moving beyond polite small talk. Christopher cleared his throat and reached for the wine he'd discovered in the mini-fridge. "Would you like some? It's nothing fancy, just something left over from last week's board meeting." "Are we allowed to drink your board meeting wine?" "I think being trapped in a snowstorm grants us some emergency privileges," he said with that smile that was becoming dangerously familiar. "Besides, it's Christmas Eve. Even CEOs are allowed to bend the rules on Christmas Eve." As he poured, Layla found herself studying his hands, strong, careful, with a thin white scar across his knuckles that made her wonder about his story. Everything about Christopher Hale intrigued her more than it should. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Anything. How did you know about my work? I mean, really no. Inventory analysis isn't exactly glamorous." Christopher set down his wine glass and leaned back in his chair, considering her question. "Do you want the professional answer or the honest one?" "Always the honest one. I read every report that comes through my office, every single one." His voice was quiet, serious. "Most executives delegate that, but I like to know what's really happening in my company, and your reports," he paused. "They tell stories, Layla, not just numbers and data, but stories about inefficiencies, about patterns, about solutions that could help people keep their jobs." Warmth spread through her chest. "I never thought about it that way. 6 months ago, you identified a supplier issue that saved us nearly $2 million. But more than that, you suggested a solution that kept our relationship with a family-owned business intact. You could have recommended we switch to a cheaper supplier, but you didn't." Layla felt heat creep up her neck. It seemed wrong to destroy someone's livelihood over a paperwork error. "Exactly." Christopher leaned forward slightly. "That's not just good business sense, Layla. That's character. And character," he met her eyes, "character is rare." The intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. She took a sip of wine, trying to gather herself. "What about you? What's your story?" "My story? How does someone become CEO of a major corporation by 39? That doesn't just happen." Christopher was quiet for a long moment, swirling the wine in his glass. When he spoke, his voice was softer than before. "My father started this company, small logistics operation, just him and a couple of trucks. He worked 18-hour days, 7 days a week, building something from nothing. That must have been hard on your family." "It was. My mother used to joke that she was a single parent with a husband who lived at the office." His smile was tinged with sadness. "She wasn't entirely wrong. Is that why you work so much?" The question seemed to surprise him. "What do you mean?" "Christmas Eve, in the office, alone." Layla's voice was gentle, not accusatory. "It seems familiar." Christopher stared out at the snow for a moment, and Layla could see him weighing how much to reveal. "My father died when I was 25. Heart attack at his desk. I inherited everything. The company, the responsibility, the expectations." He turned back to her. "I swore I'd honor what he built, but I also swore I wouldn't make his mistakes. And yet here you are, working on Christmas Eve." "Here I am," he agreed quietly. "Though I have to say this isn't quite how I imagined spending the evening. Trapped with an employee? Having dinner with the most intriguing woman I've met in years." The words hung between them like a bridge neither had expected to cross. Layla felt her heart skip, then settle into a faster rhythm. "Christopher," she began, "I'm sorry. That was inappropriate. You're my employee and—" "Stop." Layla reached across the table, her fingers brushing his hand. The contact was electric, warm. It wasn't inappropriate. It was honest. He looked down at their hands, at the way her dark fingers contrasted with his pale skin. "I don't want you to think this is some kind of power play, or that your job depends on—" "It's not," Layla said firmly. "And it doesn't." "How can you be sure?" She smiled, and it was full of the quiet confidence that had carried her through every challenge in her career. "Because I know who I am, Christopher. I know my worth, my skills, my value. And I know the difference between a man trying to use his position and a man being genuinely interested." Christopher's thumb traced across her knuckles, a barely there touch that sent shivers through her. "And which one am I?" "You made me dinner," she said simply. "You lit candles. You asked about my work like it mattered, like I mattered. You're not trying to impress me with your title or your money." She paused. "You're just you." "Just me isn't very exciting," Layla laughed softly. "Are you kidding? You're brilliant, successful, and apparently an excellent pasta chef. Plus you have this secret romantic side that lights candles during snowstorms." Her eyes sparkled with mischief. "If that's not exciting, I don't know what is." Christopher stared at her, something shifting in his expression. "You're not what I expected, Layla Robbins." "What did you expect?" "Someone intimidated by all this." He gestured around them. "By me, by the situation." "Should I be intimidated?" "God, no." His voice was fervent. "You should be exactly who you are. Strong, confident, brilliant." He trailed off, color rising in his cheeks again. "Beautiful," she supplied with a teasing smile. "Breathtaking." he said quietly, and the simple honesty in his voice made her pulse race. Outside, the wind howled louder, rattling the windows. But inside their small circle of candlelight, with wine warming her blood and Christopher's eyes reflecting the dancing flames, Layla had never felt safer or more alive. "So what happens now?" she asked softly. Christopher's smile was slow, genuine, and full of possibilities. "Now we see where this night takes us." The candles had burned lower, casting longer shadows as Christopher led Layla to the executive lounge. He'd grabbed a bottle of wine and she'd brought their glasses, but it wasn't really about the alcohol anymore. It was about prolonging this unexpected intimacy, this bubble of warmth in the storm-wrapped night. The lounge was elegant, yet comfortable, with deep leather chairs arranged around a gas fireplace that Christopher lit with the press of a button. The flames danced to life, adding their glow to the candlelight and emergency lighting, transforming the corporate space into something that felt almost like home. "Much better," Layla murmured, settling into one of the chairs and tucking her legs beneath her. She'd removed her heels hours ago, and the simple gesture somehow made everything feel more real, more intimate. Christopher sat across from her, but not too far, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his blue eyes, the way his mouth curved when he was thinking. "Can I ask you something personal?" he said, refilling their glasses. "Seems like the night for it. What were your Christmas plans? Before all this?" Layla smiled, a little embarrassed. "Honestly, Chinese takeout, old movies, and falling asleep on my couch by 10 p.m. "That sounds perfect," Christopher said, and he meant it. "Does it? Most people think I'm crazy for loving quiet holidays. Most people haven't learned the value of peace." His voice carried a weight of experience. "I spent 15 Christmases at mandatory family gatherings after my father died, board members' houses, charity galas, networking events disguised as celebrations. All noise, no meaning. Is that why you're here tonight, avoiding the social obligations?" Christopher was quiet for a moment, staring into the fire. "There are no obligations anymore. No family left to disappoint, no expectations to meet." He looked at her. "This year I just wanted to be somewhere that mattered." The loneliness in his voice made her chest ache. "Christopher, sorry, I don't mean to sound pitiful." "You don't sound pitiful," Layla said firmly. "You sound human." He laughed, but it was soft, almost surprised. "I'm not sure many people would agree with you. Then they don't know you. Do you?" The question hung between them, loaded with possibility. Layla considered it seriously, studying his face in the firelight. The strong jaw that spoke of determination, the eyes that revealed far more vulnerability than he probably intended. "I'm starting to," she said finally. "And what I see, I like." Christopher set down his wineglass and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Tell me about your family, your real Christmas traditions." "My parents live in Sacramento. Dad's a high school principal, Mom's a librarian. My sister's married with 2 kids, 7 and 4. Layla's smile was warm with memory. "We always spent Christmas morning in our pajamas, opening presents one at a time so we could appreciate each gift. Mom would make this incredible French toast casserole, and Dad would try to assemble whatever toy required some assembly." "That sounds wonderful." It was. Still is, when I can make it home. "This year," she shrugged. "Work got busy, plane tickets got expensive, and I told myself I'd rather spend the money on their gifts than travel." "But you miss them." "Terribly." The honesty slipped out before she could stop it. "I've been in Portland for 3 years, and sometimes I still feel like I'm pretending to be a grown-up who has her life together." Christopher's expression gentled. "You seem pretty together to me." "Do I? Because most days I feel like I'm making it up as I go along." "Isn't everyone?" Layla considered this, taking a sip of wine. "Is that what you do, make it up as you go?" "Every single day," he admitted. "I inherited a company at 25, Layla. I had an MBA and exactly 0 real-world experience. For the first 5 years I was convinced someone would figure out I was a fraud. And now? Now I know that everyone's just doing their best with what they've got." He paused. "Except you seem to be doing your best better than most people." Heat crept up her neck at the compliment. "You keep saying things like that. Because they're true." "Christopher." She set down her glass, suddenly needing to address the elephant in the room. Whatever this is happening between us, it's complicated. I know. You're my boss. Technically, Your boss's boss's boss. That doesn't make it less complicated. No, he agreed quietly. It doesn't. They sat in silence for a moment, the fire crackling between them. Outside, the wind had calmed slightly, but snow still fell in thick, lazy flakes that promised they'd be here for hours yet. For the record, Christopher said finally, this isn't how I usually conduct business relationships. Layla's lips curved into a smile. What, you don't regularly wine and dine your inventory controllers during blizzards? Shockingly, no. His answering smile was easier now, more relaxed. Though I'm starting to think I've been missing out. On blizzards or inventory controllers? On connection, he said simply, and the honesty in his voice made her breath catch. Christopher, I know it's complicated, Layla. I know there are rules and policies and a dozen reasons why this is a terrible idea. He leaned forward slightly. But I also know that I've spent the last 4 hours feeling more like myself than I have in years. What do you mean? I mean that with you, I'm not the CEO or the heir to the family legacy or the guy who has to have all the answers. He met her eyes. I'm just Christopher. The way he said his own name, like he was rediscovering it, made something flutter in her chest. I like Christopher, she said softly. Even without the title and the corner office? Especially without them. Christopher stood then, extending his hand to her. Dance with me. There's no music. There's always music if you listen hard enough. Layla looked at his outstretched hand, at the hope and vulnerability in his expression, at this man who was revealing himself to be so much more than his reputation suggested. Then she placed her hand in his and let him pull her to her feet. He was right, there was music, the soft crackle of the fire, the whisper of snow against the windows, the quiet rhythm of their breathing as he drew her closer. They swayed together in the firelight, her head fitting perfectly against his shoulder, his hand warm and sure on the small of her back. No words, just the simple pleasure of being held, of holding someone else. Layla, he murmured against her hair. Thank you. For what? For seeing me. She pulled back to look at him, at the man who had surprised her with his gentleness, his humor, his unexpected vulnerability. Thank you for letting yourself be seen. And when he lowered his head toward hers, when she rose on her tiptoes to meet him halfway, it felt like the most natural thing in the world, like coming home. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, questioning, as if Christopher was giving her every chance to pull away. But Layla didn't pull away. Instead, she melted into him, her hands sliding up his chest to rest against the warm cotton of his shirt, feeling his heart beating steady and strong beneath her palms. When they finally broke apart, they stayed close, foreheads touching, breathing the same air. The fire crackled softly beside them, painting everything in warm gold. Wow, Layla whispered, and Christopher's answering smile was soft, almost shy. Good wow or bad wow? Definitely good wow. She laughed quietly. Though I should probably mention that kissing the CEO wasn't on my Christmas Eve agenda. Mine either, he admitted, his thumb tracing along her cheek with infinite gentleness. But I'm finding that tonight is full of beautiful surprises. Is that what I am, a surprise? The best kind. His voice was husky, intimate, the kind that changes everything. The weight of those words settled between them, acknowledgement of what they both felt, that this wasn't just a moment born of circumstance and wine. This was something real, something that would matter long after the snow melted. Christopher, Layla said softly, we should talk about... Shh. He pressed a gentle finger to her lips. Can we just exist in this moment, before we complicate it with reality? She understood completely. Tomorrow would bring questions, complications, decisions that would shape both their futures. But tonight was just theirs. Okay, she agreed, but only if you tell me something. Anything. What were you really doing here tonight? The truth. Christopher sighed, his hands moving to rest on her waist, keeping her close. You want the truth? Always. I was hiding. The admission came quietly, almost reluctantly. From Christmas, from the loneliness, from another year of pretending I had somewhere else I'd rather be. And now? His smile was radiant. Now I'm exactly where I want to be. The sincerity in his voice made her heart skip. Even trapped in your office building during a blizzard. Especially trapped in my office building during a blizzard. His eyes sparkled with mischief. With the most incredible woman I've ever met. You know, for a CEO, You're surprisingly charming when you're not being all corporate and intimidating. I'm intimidating? Layla laughed. Christopher, you run board meetings where million-dollar decisions get made. You have people who are literally afraid to disagree with you. But not you. No, she said with quiet confidence. Not me. Why not? She considered the question seriously, her fingers absently playing with the collar of his shirt. Because I see you. Not the title, not the reputation. You. And you. She paused, meeting his eyes. You're not intimidating at all. You're thoughtful and kind and surprisingly vulnerable. Vulnerable? He raised an eyebrow. Absolutely. You try to hide it behind the executive mask, but it's there. She smiled. It's what makes you human. Most people would say vulnerability is a weakness. Most people are wrong. Her voice was firm. Vulnerability is courage. It's choosing to be real when it would be easier to hide. Christopher stared at her for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. How did you get so wise? Good parents, hard lessons, and a lot of late-night conversations with my sister. Layla grinned. Plus, I read a lot of self-help books. His laugh was rich and genuine. Self-help books? Don't judge, they're surprisingly insightful. She poked his chest playfully. Besides, what's your excuse for being emotionally intelligent? CEOs don't exactly have a reputation for feelings. I had a good teacher. Who? My mother. His expression softened with memory. She used to say that success without connection was just expensive loneliness. Smart woman. She was. I wish... He trailed off, a shadow crossing his features. What? I wish she could have met you. The simple statement hit Layla like a punch to the chest. Sweet, devastating, and so honest it made her eyes sting with unexpected tears. Christopher? Too much? He looked worried. I didn't mean to... No. She cupped his face in her hands, marveling at the roughness of his 5 o'clock shadow, the way his eyes fluttered closed at her touch. Not too much. Perfect. When he opened his eyes, the intensity there made her breath catch. Can I kiss you again? He asked quietly. I thought you'd never ask. This time the kiss was deeper, hungrier, all the restraint and politeness burned away by the growing fire between them. Layla felt herself pressed back against the wall, Christopher's hands tangling in her hair, while her own fingers gripped the front of his shirt like anchors in a storm. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Christopher rested his forehead against the wall beside her head, his body caging her in but not trapping her, surrounding her with warmth and strength and the intoxicating scent of his cologne, mixed with something purely him. Layla, he breathed against her ear, sending shivers down her spine. Yes, this is... He pulled back to look at her, his hair mussed from her fingers, his lips slightly swollen from their kisses. I don't have words for what this is. You don't need words, she said softly. Some things are better felt than explained. You're incredible. His voice was rough with emotion. Do you know that? You're not bad yourself, she teased, then grew more serious. Christopher. I'm glad we're stuck here together. His smile was brilliant, even though it's complicated. Especially because it's complicated. She traced the line of his jaw with her fingertip. The best things usually are. Is that another pearl of wisdom from your self-help books? No, Layla said with a grin. That one's all mine. Christopher laughed, pulling her closer, and as the fire crackled beside them and snow continued to fall outside, Layla realized she'd never felt more perfectly content in her entire life, or more terrified of what happened next. What are you thinking? Christopher asked softly, reading something in her expression. That this is the most romantic Christmas Eve I've ever had, she said honestly, and that terrifies me. Why? Because, she whispered, I think I'm falling for you, and that changes everything. Christopher's eyes darkened with emotion. Everything, he agreed quietly, and as he kissed her again, slow and sweet and full of promise, Layla surrendered to the terrifying, exhilarating truth. She was falling, and there was no going back now. The confession hung between them like a bridge neither was quite ready to cross, beautiful and terrifying in its honesty. Christopher's hands framed her face, his thumbs stroking her cheekbones as he searched her eyes. Layla, I know it's crazy, she whispered. I know we just met, really met, and I know this whole situation is perfect, he interrupted softly. This situation is perfect. She blinked up at him, surprised. Perfect? Do you know how long it's been since someone looked at me the way you do? His voice was rough with emotion. Not at my bank account or my title or what I can do for them, but at me. Christopher, I'm falling too, he said quietly. God help me, I'm falling so hard I can barely think straight. The relief that flooded through her was so intense, it made her knees weak. Really? Really? His smile was tender, almost reverent. You scare the hell out of me, Layla Robbins. Good, she said with a shaky laugh, because you terrify me too. What are we going to do about that? I have no idea. She wound her arms around his neck, drawing him closer. But I know I don't want to stop feeling this way, even if it's complicated, especially if it's complicated. Christopher laughed, the sound rich and warm. You really don't scare easily, do you? Not when something matters. Her voice was steady, confident. And this matters, Christopher. You matter. Something shifted in his expression, vulnerability and wonder, and something that looked dangerously like love. How are you real? Last time I checked, very real. She smiled up at him. Want to test that theory? Instead of kissing her again, Christopher surprised her by taking her hand and leading her back to the fireplace. He settled into one of the leather chairs and pulled her down beside him, arranging her so she was curled against his side, her head on his shoulder. What are you doing? She asked, though she made no move to pull away from the warmth of his embrace. Memorizing this, he said simply. The way you feel against me, the way your hair smells like vanilla and rain, the way your laugh sounds when it's just for me. Her heart stuttered. Why? Because tomorrow, when this snowstorm ends and reality comes flooding back, I want to remember every detail of tonight. You talk like it's going to disappear. Christopher was quiet for a moment, his fingers trailing through her hair. Isn't it? You'll go back to your department. I'll go back to my corner office. And this, he gestured around them, this becomes a beautiful memory. Layla pulled back to look at him, studying his face in the firelight. Is that what you want? What I want and what's realistic are two different things. That's not what I asked. Her voice was firm, challenging. Is that what you want, Christopher? For this to be just a memory? He met her eyes and she could see the war playing out in his expression. Hope battling with years of careful control, desire fighting against ingrained caution. No, he said finally, quietly. It's not what I want. Then what do you want? I want... He paused, as if the words were foreign on his tongue. I want to take you to dinner. A real dinner. Not emergency pasta in a snowstorm. I want to know what makes you laugh until your sides hurt. I want to meet your family, your friends. I want to see if this thing between us is as real in daylight as it feels in firelight. And I want to fall asleep next to you and wake up knowing you're the first thing I'll see. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. I want to love you, Layla. Completely. Honestly. For as long as you'll let me. The words hit her like lightning. Electric, illuminating, changing everything in their wake. Christopher, too much? Not enough, she said fiercely, and kissed him with all the emotion she couldn't quite voice yet. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Christopher rested his forehead against hers. What are we going to do? We're going to figure it out, Layla said with quiet determination. Together. The company policies can be navigated. People will talk. Let them. Her voice was strong, unwavering. Christopher, I've spent my entire career proving that I belong in rooms where people didn't think I should be. I'm not about to let fear of gossip keep me from something that could be extraordinary. You're sure? I'm sure that what I feel for you is real. I'm sure that you're worth fighting for. She cupped his face in her hands. Are you willing to fight for this? For us? Christopher closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. When he opened them again, they were blazing with determination. Yes, God, yes. Then we'll figure out the rest. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, wrapped in each other's arms while the fire crackled and the snow continued its gentle assault on the windows. Layla felt herself relaxing completely, for the first time in hours, her body melting against Christopher's warmth. Can I tell you something? She said softly. Anything. When I answered that phone call tonight, I was so angry. I thought my evening was ruined. And now I think it might be the most important phone call I've ever answered. Christopher's arms tightened around her. You know what's funny? What? I've been dreading Christmas for weeks. Another year of going through the motions, pretending I wasn't completely alone. His voice was soft against her hair. And here you are, giving me the best Christmas of my adult life. It's not Christmas yet, Layla pointed out. Close enough. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Besides, the best gifts don't wait for a specific date. Is that what this is? A gift? The best one I've ever received. Layla smiled against his chest, feeling something settle deep in her bones, a sense of rightness, of being exactly where she was meant to be. Christopher, I think I'm going to love you too. His intake of breath was sharp, and when she looked up, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. Future tense? Present tense, she corrected softly. I think I already do. And as Christopher kissed her again, slow and sweet and full of promise, Layla realized that sometimes the most beautiful beginnings started with the most unexpected circumstances. Outside, the clock on the building across the street struck midnight. Christmas had arrived, and with it, the promise of everything new. Layla woke to sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows and the gentle sound of Christopher's breathing beneath her cheek. Sometime during the night, they had shifted on the oversized leather chair, her body curled against his arms wrapped protectively around her, a cashmere throw from the back of the sofa covering them both. The fire had burned down to glowing embers, but Christopher's warmth had kept her comfortable through the night. For a moment, she lay perfectly still, absorbing the surreal beauty of the moment. Outside, Portland was transformed into a winter wonderland, everything draped in pristine white that sparkled like diamonds in the morning sun. Inside, she was wrapped in the arms of a man who had somehow become everything she didn't know she was looking for. Good morning, Christopher's voice rumbled beneath her, rough with sleep and impossibly intimate. Merry Christmas, she whispered back, not wanting to break the spell of the quiet morning. His arms tightened around her, and she felt his lips press against the top of her head. Best Christmas morning I've ever had, even though we're sleeping in office furniture. Especially because we're sleeping in office furniture. His chuckle vibrated through his chest, though I have to admit, my neck is questioning this sleeping arrangement. Layla lifted her head to look at him, taking in his sleep-mussed hair and the way the morning light caught the gold in his stubble. He was even more beautiful like this, unguarded, relaxed, completely hers. We could have moved to one of the conference rooms, she pointed out. Some of those tables are probably more comfortable than this chair. And missed the chance to fall asleep with you in my arms. Christopher's eyes were soft, tender. Not a chance. Heat bloomed in her chest at the simple honesty in his voice. You're very smooth for someone who just woke up. I'm motivated. His thumb traced along her cheekbone. Beautiful women tend to bring out the best in me. Just beautiful women in general? Or this beautiful woman specifically? Definitely specifically. His voice dropped lower. Only you, Layla. The way he said her name, like a prayer, like a promise, made her heart skip. Christopher, yes, kiss me good morning? I thought you'd never ask. This kiss was different from the passionate ones they'd shared the night before, softer, sweeter, infused with the lazy intimacy of morning. Christopher's hand tangled in her hair, while her fingers traced the strong line of his jaw, both of them savoring the simple pleasure of being close. When they broke apart, Layla rested her forehead against his. So what happens now? Now, Christopher said, his voice warm with amusement, I make you the best Christmas breakfast Portland has to offer from whatever we can find in the executive kitchen. That's not what I meant. I know. His expression grew more serious. But I also know that the roads are probably clear by now, which means reality is going to come knocking soon. Can we have breakfast first, before we figure out how to navigate the real world? Layla studied his face, seeing the vulnerability he was trying to hide behind practical concerns. Are you having second thoughts? God, no. The answer was immediate, fervent. But I'm also terrified that you might. Why would I have second thoughts? Because in daylight, with the snow melting and the magic of last night fading, you might realize that getting involved with your CEO is more complicated than it's worth. Layla sat up straighter, her hands framing his face. Christopher Hale listened to me very carefully. I'm listening. Last night wasn't magic. It was real. You are real. What I feel for you is real. Her voice was steady. Sure, daylight doesn't change that. And the complications are still there, but they're manageable. She smiled. I'm not some starry-eyed girl who's going to fall apart at the first sign of difficulty. I'm a woman who knows what she wants, and I want you." Christopher stared at her for a long moment, then pulled her down for another kiss, this one fierce with relief and gratitude and something deeper. "I love your confidence," he murmured against her lips. "You better. It's what's going to get us through this." "Us?" he repeated, like he was testing the word. "I like the sound of that." "Good, because we're going to be saying it a lot." Christopher laughed, the sound rich and full of joy. "Come on, let's go find some coffee. I can't properly appreciate having a girlfriend without caffeine." "Girlfriend?" Layla raised an eyebrow, though her heart did a little flip at the word. "Too presumptuous." Not presumptuous enough. She stood up, stretching muscles that were stiff from sleeping curled against him. "I prefer the love of your life." Christopher's intake of breath was sharp, his eyes darkening with emotion. "Layla, too much?" "Perfect," he said quietly. "Absolutely perfect." They made their way to the executive kitchen, Christopher's hand warm and sure in hers. The morning sun streaming through the windows turned everything golden, and Layla couldn't help but marvel at how different the office looked in daylight. Less like a prison, more like the place where their love story had begun. "Coffee first, then breakfast," Christopher announced, moving around the kitchen with surprising efficiency. "I make excellent coffee, if I do say so myself." Another hidden talent. Years of early mornings and late nights. He shot her a grin over his shoulder. "Though I have a feeling my schedule is about to change dramatically." "Why's that?" "Because now I have someone I actually want to go home to." The simple statement hit her with unexpected force. "Christopher, too much again?" "Keep saying things like that and I'm going to start crying," she warned. "Happy tears?" "The happiest." As the coffee brewed, filling the kitchen with its rich aroma, Christopher moved behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling her back against his chest. Together, they looked out at the snow-covered city below, at the world that was slowly waking up to Christmas morning. "You know what's funny?" Layla said softly. "What?" "Yesterday morning, if someone had told me I'd be spending Christmas in my boss's arms, I'd have laughed at them. And now I can't imagine being anywhere else." Christopher's arms tightened around her. "What changed your mind about quiet Christmases?" "You did." She turned in his arms to face him. "You made me realize that quiet is only lonely if you're alone. And now? Now I'm not alone. Now I'm with the man I love." The words slipped out naturally, honestly, and Christopher's expression transformed, surprise giving way to wonder, giving way to pure, radiant joy. "Say that again," he whispered. "I love you, Christopher Hale." "I love you too, Layla Robbins." His voice was rough with emotion. "God, I love you so much." And as he kissed her in the golden morning light, with Christmas music drifting up from the street below and the promise of forever stretching out before them, Layla realized that sometimes the best gifts came wrapped in the most unexpected packages, like snowstorms and second chances, and love that arrived exactly when you least expected it, but most needed it. The spell was broken by the sound of Christopher's phone buzzing insistently on the conference table. They had been sharing breakfast, Christopher's surprisingly delicious French toast made from ingredients he'd somehow conjured from the executive kitchen, when the outside world rudely reminded them of its existence. "Ignore it," Layla said softly, watching the tension creep back into Christopher's shoulders as he glanced at the phone. "I can't." "The Morrison deal. We'll survive another 10 minutes. She reached across the small table they'd set up by the window and covered his hand with hers. "Stay here with me, just a little longer." Christopher looked at her, really looked at her, taking in the way the morning light caught the gold undertones in her dark skin, the soft smile that had become his new favorite sight, the confident way she held herself, even in this moment of uncertainty. "You're right," he said, turning his hand palm up to interlace their fingers. "Whatever it is can wait." But the phone buzzed again, and again. On the fourth ring, Layla sighed. "Answer it. I'm not going anywhere." Christopher squeezed her hand before reaching for the phone, his entire demeanor shifting as he checked the caller ID. "It's my assistant, Marcus. He probably wants to make sure I didn't freeze to death in the storm." "Christopher?" Marcus's voice was tight with concern when Christopher answered. "Thank God, I've been trying to reach you for hours. Are you all right?" "I'm fine, Marcus. The building's emergency systems kept everything running." Christopher's eyes found Layla's across the table. "Better than fine, actually." The roads are clear now. I can be there in 20 minutes to pick you up. That's not necessary. Sir, with respect, you've been trapped in that building all night. You must be exhausted, uncomfortable, and we have the Morrison contracts to review before... Marcus, Christopher's voice carried the quiet authority that had built his empire. I appreciate your concern, but I'm perfectly capable of getting myself home when I'm ready. There was a pause on the other end. Of course, sir, but is everything all right? You sound different. Layla watched Christopher's expression, saw the moment he realized how dramatically his world was about to change. How many conversations like this would he have to navigate? How many people would question the shift in his priorities? Everything's perfect, Christopher said firmly. In fact, I don't think I've ever been better. After he hung up, they sat in silence for a moment, the weight of reality settling between them. That's going to happen a lot, isn't it? Layla said quietly. People noticing the change in you. Probably. Christopher's thumb traced across her knuckles. Does that worry you? Should it? I don't know. I've never done this before. This? Fallen in love. Changed my entire world for someone. His smile was rueful. I'm not sure I'm going to be very good at it. Layla laughed, the sound warm and reassuring. Christopher, you've been managing people and complex situations your entire career. I think you can handle having a girlfriend. It's not the management I'm worried about. It's the vulnerability. What do you mean? Christopher was quiet for a moment, staring out at the snow-covered city. For years, my personal life has been non-existent. By choice. It was easier that way. No complications, no divided loyalties, no one who could hurt me. And now I have everything to lose. His eyes met hers, raw with honesty. You have the power to destroy me, Layla. Completely. The confession hung between them, stark and beautiful in its vulnerability. Layla felt the weight of his trust, the magnitude of what he was offering her. Christopher, she said softly, look at me. He did, his blue eyes searching her face. I would never hurt you. Not intentionally, not ever. I know, that's what terrifies me. Why? Because it means this is real. What we have, what we're building. It's not just chemistry or circumstance or Christmas magic. It's real, and it's going to change everything. Layla stood, moving around the table to sit on the arm of his chair. She cupped his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her gaze. Yes, it's going to change everything, she agreed. Your schedule, your priorities, the way you see your future. My career path, my relationships with colleagues, probably where I live and how I spend my time. Doesn't that scare you? Terrifies me, she admitted with a smile. But you know what scares me more? What? The thought of going back to my quiet little life and pretending this never happened. The thought of walking past you in the hallway and acting like you're just my CEO. The thought of spending another Christmas alone when I could be spending it with you. Christopher's hands settled on her waist, anchoring her to him. So what do? We figure it out, together. Her voice was steady, certain. We talk to HR about proper protocols. We're transparent about our relationship, so no one can accuse us of impropriety. We set boundaries at work and keep our personal relationship separate from business. And if people gossip, let them gossip. Layla's smile was fierce. I've been talked about my entire career, Christopher. It comes with the territory of being a young black woman in corporate America. I learned a long time ago that people are going to have opinions about my life, regardless of what I do, so I might as well live it on my terms. Your terms include me. My terms require you, she corrected. I don't want a watered-down version of this relationship because we're worried about what other people think. I want all of it, the complications, the challenges, the beautiful messiness of building something real with someone I love. Christopher stared at her for a long moment, and she could see the exact moment he made his decision. The worry lines around his eyes smoothed, his shoulders straightened, and his grip on her waist tightened with resolve. Okay, he said simply. Okay, all of it. The complications, the challenges, the beautiful messiness. His smile was radiant. I want all of it with you. Even if it means people questioning your judgment? Especially if it means people questioning my judgment. Christopher pulled her down for a kiss that tasted like promises and forever. Because loving you is the smartest thing I've ever done. Their phones buzzed simultaneously. His with another call from Marcus. Hers with a text from her sister asking if she'd survived the storm. The world's not going to wait much longer, Layla said reluctantly. I know. Christopher stood, pulling her with him. But before we face all of that, yes, I want to take you home. Not to some hotel, not to a restaurant for our first official date. I want to show you my house, make you coffee in my kitchen, see what you look like curled up on my couch. Is this your way of asking me to spend the rest of Christmas with you? This is my way of asking you to spend the rest of Christmas with me, he confirmed. And if you're willing, a lot more than just Christmas. Layla's smile was brilliant. Christopher Hale, are you asking me to move in with you? I'm asking you to consider the possibility that we might not want to spend any more nights apart. That's a very roundabout way of asking. I'm nervous, he admitted with a laugh. Sue me. I don't want to sue you, Layla said, wrapping her arms around his neck. I want to go home with you. Yeah? Yeah. But first, she grinned mischievously. You have to call Marcus back and tell him you're bringing home a very important guest. Christopher groaned. He's going to have so many questions. Good thing you'll have the rest of your life to answer them. And as Christopher reached for his phone, Layla realized that facing the world together was going to be the greatest adventure of all. Christopher's house was not what Layla had expected. She'd prepared herself for something intimidating, a cold, modern mansion that screamed wealth and status. Instead, as his Range Rover pulled through the gates of a tree-lined neighborhood, she found herself looking at a beautiful colonial-style home, with warm stone facades, ivy climbing the walls, and windows that glowed with soft, inviting light. This is gorgeous, she breathed, taking in the snow-covered gardens and the wraparound porch decorated with simple white lights. It was my parents' house, Christopher said quietly, pulling into the circular drive. I couldn't bear to sell it after they died. I'm glad you didn't. Layla turned to study his profile, seeing the mix of love and sadness that crossed his features. It feels like home. It hasn't for a long time, he admitted. Too big, too quiet, too many memories. But today, it feels like home again. The simple honesty in his voice made her heart skip. As they walked to the front door, Christopher's hand warm and steady in hers, Layla felt a sense of rightness settle deep in her bones. The interior was even more beautiful than the exterior. Hardwood floors gleamed under soft lighting, family photographs lined the hallway, and everything spoke of comfort rather than display. It was elegant, but lived in, expensive, but not ostentatious. Mrs. Chen keeps it ready for guests, Christopher explained, noticing her appreciative glances. Though I haven't had overnight company in, well, ever, actually. Never? I told you I don't usually bring my personal life home. His smile was self-deprecating. You're breaking a lot of my rules, Layla Robbins. Good, she said with a grin. Rules are overrated anyway. Christopher laughed, pulling her closer. Come on, let me show you around. The tour was intimate, personal in ways that surprised her. Christopher didn't just show her rooms. He shared stories. The kitchen where his mother had taught him to make Sunday breakfast. The library where his father had worked on weekends. The living room where the family Christmas tree had stood every year until he was 18. Where do you put it now? Layla asked softly. I don't. The admission was quiet, almost embarrassed. Haven't had a tree in years. Christopher, her heart ached for him, for all the Christmases he'd spent alone in this beautiful, empty house. I know it sounds pathetic. It felt wrong to celebrate when there was no one to celebrate with. Well, Layla said, her voice warm with determination, that changes this year. What do you mean? I mean tomorrow we're going Christmas tree shopping. It's too late for this Christmas, but next year, she smiled up at him, next year this house is going to be full of Christmas magic. Next year, Christopher's voice was carefully neutral, but she could see the hope flickering in his eyes. Next year, she confirmed firmly, and every year after that, if you'll have me. If I'll have you, Christopher stopped walking, turning to face her fully. Layla, I want you here for every Christmas, every holiday, every ordinary Tuesday night for the rest of my life. The declaration hung between them, beautiful and terrifying in its scope. That's a long time, she whispered. Not long enough. Before she could respond, Christopher was kissing her, deep, desperate, full of all the longing and love and future promises he couldn't quite voice yet. Layla melted into him, her arms winding around his neck as she kissed him back with equal fervor. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Christopher rested his forehead against hers. Stay, he whispered. Not just for tonight, not just for the weekend. Stay, Layla. Move in with me. Let me come home to you every night, Christopher. I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But I also know that I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. His hands framed her face, thumbs stroking across her cheekbones. I don't want to waste time pretending this is casual when we both know it's not. Layla searched his eyes, seeing nothing but sincerity and love, and the kind of vulnerability that took her breath away. What about work? People will definitely notice if I suddenly start living in a mansion. Then we'll be transparent about it. We'll talk to HR on Monday, make sure everything's above board. His voice was steady, confident. I don't want to hide this, Layla. I want the whole world to know that you're mine. Yours? She raised an eyebrow, though her heart was racing. Mine, he confirmed, then softened. If you'll have me. Christopher Hale, she said slowly. Are you asking me to be your live-in girlfriend? I'm asking you to be my everything. The words hit her like a physical force. So honest, so complete, so exactly what she'd been afraid to hope for. Yes, she whispered. Yes, yes, I'll move in with you. Yes, I'll be your everything. Yes to all of it. Christopher's smile was radiant, transforming his entire face. He lifted her off her feet, spinning her around the elegant foyer while she laughed, joy bubbling up from somewhere deep inside her chest. When he set her down, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. I love you, he said simply, more than I knew it was possible to love someone. I love you too, she replied, reaching up to brush a tear from his cheek. So much that it scares me. Good scared or bad scared? The best kind of scared, the kind that means something extraordinary is about to begin. Christopher captured her hand, pressing it flat against his chest, where she could feel his heart beating strong and fast. Feel that? He asked. Your heart. Beating for you. Only you. That's very poetic for a CEO. You bring out the poet in me, he said with a grin, along with the chef, the romantic, and apparently the man who proposes moving in together after 24 hours. Do you regret it? Never. His voice was fierce with certainty. You? Not for a second. As Christopher led her upstairs to show her what would become their bedroom, Layla marveled at how quickly her life had transformed. 24 hours ago, she'd been a single woman with a quiet job and a simple life. Now she was in love, moving in with the CEO of her company and planning Christmas trees for years to come. Layla? Christopher said as they reached the top of the stairs. Yes, thank you. For what? For answering your phone yesterday, for staying in that building with me, for seeing me instead of just my title. He paused at the bedroom doorway, his expression tender, for saving me from a lifetime of empty Christmases. Christopher? She said softly, you saved me too. From what? From settling for a life that was safe but not spectacular. She smiled up at him. From never knowing what it felt like to be completely, devastatingly in love. And how does it feel? Like coming home, she whispered. And as Christopher kissed her in the doorway of what would become their shared sanctuary, Layla realized that sometimes the most beautiful destinations were the ones you never planned to visit. Sometimes home was a person, sometimes love arrived in snowstorms, and sometimes the best adventures began with a simple phone call you almost didn't answer. The call came at 7 a.m. on Monday morning, shattering the peaceful cocoon they'd built over the weekend. Layla was making coffee in Christopher's kitchen. Their kitchen, she corrected herself with a smile, when his phone erupted with the harsh buzz of an emergency call. She watched his face transform as he answered, saw the exact moment their bubble of happiness collided with reality. What do you mean, leaked? Christopher's voice was sharp, all traces of the relaxed man she'd woken up beside vanishing in an instant. How is that possible? Layla set down her coffee mug, dread pooling in her stomach as she watched Christopher pace the length of the kitchen, his free hand running through his hair in agitation. No, Marcus. I don't care how they found out. I care about damage control. His eyes found hers across the room, and she saw apology and fury warring in his expression. Give me 30 minutes. I'll be there. When he hung up, the silence stretched between them like a chasm. What happened? Layla asked quietly, though part of her already knew. Someone saw us leaving the building together yesterday. There are photos. Christopher's jaw was tight with anger. The Business Journal is running a story about the CEO and his mystery woman spending Christmas Eve together. Photos? Heat crept up her neck, not from embarrassment but from invasion of privacy. Nothing inappropriate, just us walking to my car, holding hands. He moved toward her, his hands reaching for her face. "Layla, I'm so sorry. I should have thought about this, should have protected you." "Stop!" She caught his hands, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions in her chest. "This isn't your fault, isn't it? I'm the one who chose to hold your hand in public. I'm the one who couldn't wait to get you alone. Christopher." Her voice was firm, cutting through his self-recrimination. "Look at me." He did, his blue eyes dark with worry and guilt. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly. "Any of it?" "God, no. Never." "Then we deal with it. Together." "You don't understand," Christopher said, his voice rough with frustration. "They're going to dig into your life, your background, your qualifications. They're going to question whether you earned your position or if you're just sleeping your way to the top." The words hit her like a physical blow, but Layla straightened her shoulders, drawing on the strength that had carried her through every challenge in her career. "Let them question," she said calmly. "My work speaks for itself." "Layla." "No, Christopher. Listen to me." Her voice was steel wrapped in silk. "I have been questioned, doubted, and underestimated my entire professional life. People have made assumptions about my qualifications, my intelligence, my worth based on nothing but my appearance and their own prejudices. And you know what I've done every single time? What? I've proven them wrong." Her chin lifted with quiet defiance. "I've outworked them, outperformed them, and outlasted them. And I'll do it again if I have to." Christopher stared at her, and she could see the moment his worry transformed into something deeper. Pride, admiration, and a love so fierce it took her breath away. "You're incredible," he said softly. "I'm prepared," she corrected. "There's a difference. What do you want to do?" "I want to go to work. I want to hold my head high and do my job better than anyone expects. And I want to stand beside the man I love while we navigate this together. The board is going to have questions, probably demands. Then we'll have answers." Layla moved closer, her hands settling on his chest. "Christopher, I'm not some fragile flower who's going to wilt at the first sign of scrutiny. I'm a strong woman who knows her worth, and I love a man who's worth fighting for. Even if it gets ugly, especially if it gets ugly." Christopher's arms came around her, pulling her tight against him as if he could shield her from the world through sheer force of will. "I love you," he whispered against her hair, "so much that it terrifies me. I love you too. That's why we're going to get through this." "How can you be so sure?" Layla pulled back to look at him, her hands framing his worried face. "Because what we have is real, Christopher. What we built in that office, in this house, in each other's hearts, that's not going away because of a newspaper article or office gossip or boardroom politics. But what if nothing?" Her voice was fierce, certain. "What if we stop letting fear dictate our choices and start living the life we want?" Christopher's phone buzzed again, but this time he ignored it, his full attention focused on the woman in his arms. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that if we're going to face the music, we might as well dance to our own tune." Layla's smile was brilliant, fearless. "I'm saying that I want the whole world to know that I'm in love with Christopher Hale, CEO or not. I'm saying that I'm tired of hiding and ready to fight. Fight for what? For us. For the right to love who we choose. For the right to build something beautiful together without asking permission from people who don't matter." Christopher stared at her for a long moment, and she could see him making a decision that would change everything. "You're right," he said finally, his voice gaining strength with each word. "We stop hiding. We stop apologizing. We stop letting other people define what our relationship should look like." "Exactly. But Layla, there's something else. Something I need to tell you before we face this together." "What?" Christopher took a deep breath, his hands settling on her waist as if anchoring himself to her. "I've been thinking about this all weekend, and the phone call just made me realize I can't wait any longer. Christopher, what are you? Marry me." The words fell between them like lightning, sudden, electric, illuminating everything. "What?" Layla's voice was barely a whisper. "Marry me, Layla." Christopher's voice was steady now, certain, not because of the scandal or the media attention, or because we need to make this look legitimate. "Marry me because I can't imagine a single day of my life without you. Marry me because when I think about facing the board or the press or whatever comes next, The only thing that matters is having you beside me." Tears sprang to her eyes, but she blinked them back, needing to see him clearly. "Are you serious?" "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." Christopher's thumb brushed across her cheek. "I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But I also know that what we have doesn't come around twice. I love you, Layla. Completely, desperately, forever. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving it to you. Christopher, if you're not ready, I understand. We can wait. We can take our time. Yes, 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 I'll marry you." Layla's smile was radiant through her tears. "Yes, to all of it. To forever. To facing whatever comes next as long as we're facing it together." Christopher's kiss was fierce with joy and relief and promises of forever. When they broke apart, both laughing and crying at the same time, he rested his forehead against hers. "I don't have a ring," he said apologetically. "I don't need a ring. I need you. You have me. Always." "Then we have everything we need." As Christopher's phone buzzed insistently and the world outside continued its demands for their attention, Layla realized that this was what love really looked like. Not the fairy tale perfection she'd once imagined, but something stronger, braver, more beautiful. Love that chose to fight rather than flee. Love that said yes to forever, even when forever looked uncertain. Love that transformed a Christmas Eve snowstorm into the beginning of everything. "Ready to face the world, Mrs. Soon-to-be-Hale?" Christopher asked with a grin. "Ready for anything, Mr. Soon-to-be-Husband." And as they walked hand in hand toward whatever waited for them, Layla knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would meet them together. Because some love stories were worth fighting for, and theirs was just beginning. 1 year later, Christmas Eve, snow was falling again outside the executive conference room, but this time, Layla wasn't trapped by the weather. This time, she was exactly where she chose to be. "Mrs. Hale," Christopher's voice was warm with amusement as he found her standing by the same window where their love story had begun. "You're not supposed to be working on Christmas Eve." Layla turned, her wedding ring catching the soft light from the Christmas tree they'd installed in the corner. The first one the executive floor had seen in decades. 6 months of marriage had only made Christopher more handsome, more relaxed, more completely hers. "I'm not working," she said with a smile, moving into his arms with the natural ease of a woman who belonged there. "I'm remembering." "Remembering what?" "A year ago tonight when a scared, lonely CEO and an overworked inventory controller got trapped in a snowstorm and found everything they didn't know they were looking for." Christopher's laugh was rich with contentment. "Scared and lonely." "Terrified and desperately lonely," she corrected, reaching up to straighten his tie, a gesture that had become second nature. "Good thing a brilliant, fearless woman showed up to save you." "The best thing," he agreed, his arms tightening around her waist, "though I seem to remember doing some saving of my own." "Really? What did you save me from?" "A lifetime of quiet Christmas Eves and microwaved dinners." His eyes sparkled with mischief, a career plateau, and a heart that had forgotten how to take risks. Layla laughed, the sound echoing in the space where they'd shared their first kiss, their first dance, their first "I love you." The year hadn't been without challenges. The media attention had been intense for months, with photographers following them to dinner dates and reporters analyzing every public appearance. The board had asked pointed questions and demanded transparency. Colleagues had whispered, speculated, and made assumptions. And through it all they had faced it together, hands linked, heads high, love unshakable. Layla had proven herself over and over again, her work on the Morrison deal earning her a promotion to senior operations manager. Christopher had shown the world that his personal happiness only made him a better leader, more innovative, more connected to his employees' humanity. "Have I mentioned lately that I'm proud of you?" Christopher murmured against her temple. "Only every day." Layla pulled back to look at him, seeing the contentment that had replaced the lonely shadows in his eyes. "But I don't mind hearing it again. I'm proud of you, Layla Hale, for your courage, your brilliance, your refusal to let anyone dim your light." His voice was soft with reverence. "For seeing me when I'd forgotten how to see myself. Christopher, for answering your phone that night, for staying, for choosing us over and over again, even when it would have been easier to walk away." Walking away was never an option, she said simply. Some things are worth fighting for. Like what? Like love that transforms everything it touches. Like finding your home in another person. Like Christmas mornings in a house filled with laughter instead of silence. As if summoned by her words, voices drifted up from the lobby below. Children's laughter, adult conversation, the warm buzz of family gathering. Christopher's entire leadership team was downstairs for their annual Christmas party. But this year, it wasn't a stuffy corporate event. This year it was a celebration of community, of chosen family, of the connections that made work feel like more than just a job. "They're waiting for us," Christopher said reluctantly. "They can wait a few more minutes." Layla's smile was mischievous. "I want to give you your real Christmas present first. I thought we agreed no presents until tomorrow morning. This one can't wait." She took a deep breath, her heart racing with anticipation and joy. "Christopher, what would you say if I told you that next Christmas we won't be alone up here?" He frowned slightly, confused. "What do you mean? The whole team will be—" "No," she interrupted softly, taking his hands and placing them on her still flat stomach. "I mean we won't be alone." Christopher went perfectly still, his eyes widening as understanding dawned. "Layla, are you saying—" "I'm saying that our Christmas miracle is getting a sequel." Her voice was thick with emotion. "I'm saying that you're going to be a father, Christopher Hale." The transformation of his expression was breathtaking, shock melting into wonder, melting into pure, radiant joy. He lifted her off her feet, spinning her around the conference room while she laughed, both of them crying and kissing and whispering "I love you" between tears of happiness. When he set her down, his hands immediately returned to her stomach, his touch reverent and protective. "How long?" he whispered. 8 weeks. "Due in August." "August," he repeated as if testing the word. Our baby," she confirmed. "Are you happy?" "Happy?" Christopher's laugh was unsteady with emotion. "Layla, I'm everything. Terrified, elated, grateful beyond words." He cupped her face in his hands. "I'm going to be a father. The best father," she said with absolute certainty. "Just like you became the best husband." "I love you," he said simply, the words carrying the weight of forever. "I love our life, our future, our family." "I love you too, all of you, everything we've built and everything we're going to build." As they stood together in the soft glow of Christmas lights, snow falling gently outside the window, Layla marveled at how perfectly their story had unfolded. A year ago, she'd been alone and longing for something she couldn't name. Now she was a wife, soon to be a mother, standing in the arms of a man who loved her completely. "Ready to go tell our family?" Christopher asked, nodding toward the sounds of celebration below. "Ready for anything as long as it's with you. Even sleepless nights and dirty diapers and a crying baby who doesn't care that Daddy has board meetings?" "Especially that," Layla laughed, "though you might want to practice your lullabies. I'll add it to my list, right after learn to change diapers and baby-proof the mansion." "Our mansion," she corrected. "Our family. Our perfectly imperfect, beautifully complicated life." "Our everything," Christopher agreed. And as they walked hand in hand toward their chosen family, toward the future they were building together, Layla realized that some stories didn't end. They just grew more beautiful with each new chapter. 5 years later, as their daughter Sophia helped them decorate the Christmas tree in the same conference room where Mommy and Daddy fell in love, Layla would think back to that snowy Christmas Eve and smile. Because the best love stories weren't about perfect beginnings. They were about the courage to keep writing new chapters, season after season, year after year. Love wasn't a destination. It was a journey they chose to take together, one Christmas at a time. Final message. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin in the most unexpected ways. With a phone call you almost don't answer, a snowstorm that changes everything, and the courage to see beyond titles and first impressions to the heart of who someone really is. Layla and Christopher's story reminds us that true love isn't about perfect circumstances or easy choices. It's about finding someone who sees you completely, choosing to fight for something real when the world tries to tear it down, and having the bravery to say yes to forever, even when forever looks uncertain. Their Christmas Eve taught them that home isn't a place. It's a person who makes you feel safe enough to be completely yourself. That the best gifts aren't wrapped in boxes, but in moments of genuine connection. That sometimes getting trapped by circumstances is actually freedom in disguise. Love requires courage. It demands vulnerability. It asks us to believe in something bigger than our fears and stronger than our doubts. But when we find it, really find it, it transforms everything it touches. A question for you. If you found yourself trapped in a snowstorm with someone who could change your entire life, would you have the courage to let them? What would you do if love arrived at the most inconvenient moment and asked you to risk everything for the possibility of forever? Your thoughts and reflections mean everything to us. Please share your heart in the comments below. Thank you for joining Layla and Christopher on their journey from that first snowy Christmas Eve to their beautiful forever. Your engagement and support make these stories possible. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.